you're all doing fine. Welcome back to the Wee Lorda channel. Today we're going to be making a delicious goat's cheese and vegetable tart. So I have actually used my own pastry in this recipe. You can use a shop-bought pre-made short crust pastry if you want to. I have included the recipe for the pastry in this video if you want to try making your own. It's really quick and I always find it's tastier as well. So in this recipe we're going to be using soft goat's cheese, green beans and broccoli and a little bit of red onion as well. But you can swap out those vegetables if you want to and use other seasonal vegetables that are available in your garden or locally. A few substitutes would be good would be broad beans or peas, maybe some Swiss chard or a little bit of spinach. You could also swap the cheese out and use cheddar cheese as well if you don't like goat's cheese. So the basic recipe is for the pastry and for the egg filling, so you can use swap out the ingredients if you want to as well. I have also added in a little bit of chutney into my quiche. I just find it really works well. If you don't want to add it in, you could also serve it on the side. So I used some of my gooseberry chutney that I made last autumn, I believe it was. So it was super delicious and it worked really nice with this recipe. Another really nice chutney flavour to go with the goat's cheese tart would be a fig chutney, or maybe even like an apple chutney, or a rhubarb chutney would be nice too. So feel free to experiment. I'd love to see your experiments over on Instagram. So if you do change it up a little bit, let me know what you went for in your own creation. So let's get started on this delicious goat's cheese and vegetable summer tart. So for this delicious goat's cheese and vegetable tart, you're going to use these ingredients here. If you want to swap out the goat's cheese for cheddar, you can do that if you want to. It would work just as well. So we're going to add all of our flour into our mixing bowl there. We're going to start with that. We're going to make our pastry first of all. Now I'm no pastry expert, this is just how I do it. If you know how to make short crust pastry better, then by all means just go ahead and do it your way. You can also use pre-rolled pastry if you want to as well, to make it a little bit quicker for you. So we're just going to add in our pinch of salt there. We're then going to put in our butter as well. We're just going to mix that through. So we're just rubbing it through in our fingers. So we're looking for like a breadcrumb type consistency. So just going to rub all the butter in until it is completely combined with the flour. So it should look something like this, a little bit like cake crumbs or something. And we're then going to add in a little bit of water at a time. So we're just going to add our water in there. So it's approximately 2 tablespoons. I maybe went for a little bit more actually. So just use whatever you need to use to form a dough. So I'd probably use about 2 to 4 tablespoons here. You just want to add a tiny bit in at a time and just keep mixing it through until it is coming together in a dough consistency. So it should come together like this once you've added in your water. If it's too dry, just add in a little bit more water at a time. So there we go, and we're just going to put that in the fridge for about 20 minutes or so, just until it's nice and chilled again. And we're then going to grease our tart tin in the meantime. So I'm using this one here with a pop out bottom, and it just makes it easier to get it out without it breaking up once it is cooked. So we're just going to butter that really well. You could use greaseproof paper if you don't want to use butter on your tin there. And we're then just going to cook up our vegetables for inside the tart. So we're just cooking our onions in a little bit of butter here. You could use oil, whatever you have available. We're going to add our vegetables. So once we've done our onions, we're then going to pop some water in that pan. I've taken the onions out now, and we're then just going to add in our green beans and broccoli as well into there. So you can swap up the veggies as well. You don't have to use green beans and broccoli. You could use other vegetables, just wherever you've got available, whatever's seasonal to you. Broad beans would work well, peas even, just whatever you have to hand. So we're going to salt that and just cook those through, or till they're almost entirely cooked. You don't want them too mushy in your tart, so just make sure you don't cook them too long. So we're going to set those aside to cool, the onions and the vegetables, while we're doing the rolling out the pastry. So our pastry is nice and chilled now, and we're also going to preheat our oven at this stage to 180. So that's a fan oven I'm using, and we're just going to, so you might want to adjust it a little bit if it's not a fan oven that you're using. We're just going to add our pastry onto the like a chopping board, or you could just use your counter if you want to. And I just like to roll my pastry in the flour just so that it's nice and covered before I start rolling, so it doesn't stick to the bottom of the chopping board. I mean, it is easier doing it straight onto the counter, so if you want to just do that, just go for it. And I'm just rolling it out here until we have a nice flat shape that will fit and cover our tart dish that we've chosen for this lovely summer tart, or summer quiche, whatever you want to call it. So we're just about there. One way to check if you've got it to the exact size is just to pop the tin on top, and you should have sort of space to go up the sides as well. So we're going to carefully pop that onto our dish there. I tend to use a rolling pin to carry it over, but I just went for my hands today. And we're just going to press that into the tin. Now you can bake it blind if you want it super crispy, but to be honest, I actually thought it didn't even need it, and it came out just as good. And I didn't have greaseproof paper on that day. That's why I didn't bake it with the beans first to crisp up the pastry. If you want to make the pastry a little bit crispier, you can just put some greaseproof paper in here, fill it with beans, and bake it for about 10-15 minutes before you then go on to the filling part. But if you want to just skip it and just add the filling in, then just follow me here. So we're going to trim off the edges there so that it is nice and neat, or as neat as it can be. We're then going to add in our veggies. So I'm just leaving them to cool a little bit longer because they're still steaming a wee bit here. We're also going to add our single cream into a bowl or a jug or something. I'm just using like a really tall cup here that I use for making smoothies and stuff. And we're then just going to add our eggs, and just so that we can whisk them all together until the eggs and the cream are really well combined. Now, a good substitute for the cream is, I really like using I'm actually using dairy cream here, but I also like using the oat cream. It's also really nice to use for this recipe. But you do want something that's quite thick, so I do find that dairy cream works the best. So we're going to add our eggs in there. We're going to give that a good whisk through, and we're then going to add our veggies into our dish. Just make sure you season your eggs and cream as well with a little bit of salt and pepper. You could also add a wee bit of spice in there too. I tend not to when I know Mary's going to have some, because I know she's a little bit fussy and she's like hypersensitive to spicy foods. So now that our vegetables are nice and cool, or fairly cool, they're still steaming a wee bit, but they're not boiling hot, and we're just going to pop those into our dish there. And we've got our onions in the bottom of the bowl as well. We're just going to spread them all around so they are fairly even. Pour on our cream mixture. And we're going to give that a good mix through, a good stir through with the spoon. Just be careful not to go through your pastry, because you do not want a leaking tart in the middle of the oven. That is the worst thing, because it goes all over your oven and it's such a major cleanup job. So we're just going to break our ghost cheese into our tart here. Now, if you've got like one of those ghost cheese logs, you can just slice it up and put it on, but the one that I had was quite soft, so I'm just breaking it up into little pieces. You could also use hard goat's cheese if you want to grate it on as well, or as I said before, you could use cheddar as well. So we're now going to sprinkle that with some fresh chives. You could also use a wee bit of coriander. Parsley would work really well, just whatever herbs you have available. And I'm also using a little bit of my leftover chutney, which is rhubarb chutney that I've got here. You can use whatever chutney you have available if you want to add a little bit in. I just find it adds a really nice sweetness and it's really, this rhubarb chutney is really delicious. I literally use it on everything. I also served my tart up with a little bit of extra chutney as well, but it was a different chutney that I used, so I'm doubling up on the chutneys today. So we're going to cook this in the oven for about 25 to 30 minutes, and it should be nice and cooked through after that. So you just want to check that it is when you take it out. So it should look something like this, nice and golden brown on the top. The pastry is nice and crispy as well. So I really didn't think it needed to be baked with the beans, so it came out really nice and crispy as it was. So it's entirely up to you if you want to bake your pastry with the beans before adding in your fillings. It's up to you. So it's nice and well cooked on the inside, and you can see all the layers of the vegetables and the cheese, the egg and the chutney as well. What a delicious combo. My kids absolutely loved this tart. It did not last long at all. So I hope you enjoyed making your delicious goat's cheese and vegetable tart, or if you went for a different combo, let me know in the comments below. Feel free to share your pictures over on Instagram as well, and I'll share them in my stories for everyone else to see. If you enjoyed this video, please feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed, if you click the subscribe button and the bell next to it, I will see you guys again soon. I'm just about to start my new cookbook as well. I'm hoping to get a few cookbooks out in the autumn months, so I'm going to be starting my autumn bakes cookbook. So excited about this one. It doesn't really feel right cooking up autumn bakes in the middle of summer, but it's got to be done ahead of time before I can get the cookbook out to you guys. So if you're over on Instagram, you'll see some sneak peeks in my stories of the bakes that I'm making for my new cookbook. I also have my free cookbook available on my website at angiemilne.com. Feel free to pop over there and pick up a copy. And there's also my Scotch Tea Room cookbook and Christmas cookbook over there as well. So I hope to see you all again soon. Thanks for watching. Take care. Lots of love. Bye bye.